wanted to focus on kind of the industry initiatives. And so, not planned at all. Jocelyn, actually, I know once she kind of launched the Da Vinci IGs and was put in reg, I think that was kind of her, hey, want to now actually implement. Mine came along and it was just doing all the industry stuff where I decided, I really want to kind of focus on that in this, I would say, kind of later part of my career. And so, yeah, it was a great ride with Point of Care Partners. There are a ton of just amazing folks that are still working there. That is, they're still moving everything forward. But I'm excited to be in this new role with NCPDP. There's so much happening in the industry, and we on the pharmacy side just want to be at the table. So that's what I'm doing now. Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like a lot of focus on actual pharmacy interoperability. And we talk about pharmacy interoperability, and people are like, what is that? Right? Because we're already doing a lot. We've been doing e-prescribing, we've been doing claims, all of that. But it's really now about the clinical data exchange and pulling pharmacists more into the care team. So I think we all kind of started coming out of the pandemic realizing that pharmacists can do a lot more, right? There was, of course, the giving of the vaccinations, but also prescribing a Paxlovid, right? Pharmacists were able to do that. But what people didn't realize is in order to do that, they needed to have the lab results for the patient. And so a lot of pharmacists don't have access to a patient record. So there was this recognition, right, that the role that the pharmacists played during the pandemic, and then, what can they be doing going forward with public health, even just every day, closing gaps in care. I think we hear a lot from health plans of, we want providers to close gaps in care, but they don't always have the time, right? Whereas pharmacists are seeing the patient almost on a monthly basis. Yeah, it's a great question. So, prior to my leaving Point of Care Partners, the NCPDP Foundation actually gave a grant to Point of Care Partners to do some of that research of kind of where's the industry at, right, to start doing this. Surprisingly, most of, I think it was like 99% of the pharmacy dispensing systems have clinical capabilities. So a pharmacist can, can capture clinical data, can share clinical data back. There's a there's a CCD document called the Pharmacist E-Care Plan, where pharmacists can actually be capturing all this clinical data and sharing it. So the problem, though, is we don't see, it's the reimbursement side, right? And the ROI for the pharmacist, right? And then, I mean, imagine if you go to the pharmacy today, there's always a line, right? They're always just dispensing. But pharmacists would love to be able to do some of this clinical information, clinical services. There's several things. One is CMS doesn't recognize pharmacists as providers. And so, that's kind of a big push, obviously, from a lot of the associations, the pharmacy associations. But yeah, I think health plans are interested in working with pharmacists, but pharmacists are used to, from a revenue cycle management standpoint, right? They're used to when they're dispensing, they ping the PBM, they know whether or not they're going to get paid or not on that claim. With the clinical services, it's such a different kind of workflow, right? You provide it, then you submit the claim, then you get, so we're trying to kind of figure out, right? Like, how does that work? How does the billing work? I know there's a lot of health plans that are interested in figuring this out. And so there's some movement there as well. So it's kind of a couple different things kind of in that process, which is nice because now actually getting focus on this pharmacy interoperability, we're starting to see people talk about it to say, how do we resolve some of these kind of open challenges? Yeah, I've been following obviously what's going on very closely, but what's been interesting is, pharmacists don't quite fit, I think, into some of the SOPs that are they're out there today. And the reason I say that is through this research that Point of Care Partners was doing, we talked to some of the national networks, right? And we gave three examples. So if you think about it, a pharmacist dispensing a medication, they obviously don't need necessarily information to the patient. They don't need access to the patient record, and they don't need to be providing any data back. But if they're in that position where they're actually prescribing Paxlovid for the patient, all of a sudden they become the provider, right? So they want to follow that patient through. So then, yeah, of course, they're going to fall into kind of an existing treatment protocol. Then the third case was, hey, I'm a pharmacist that's in some kind of practice agreement where I am, capturing a patient's blood pressure every time they come into their medication, right? What does that fall under? And so it's been this interesting kind of aha for I think a lot of us to say, do pharmacists, and then of course everything else going on, right? Like how do we draw the lines? Yeah, so you brought up the 11 by 11 in a niche, and I remember we were meeting as NCPDP board with ONC in like July, and I threw out they were talking about the 10 by 10. I'm like, we need an 11 by 11. We need pharmacies, right, giving information. So I immediately texted Anish. He's like, yeah, I'm all in, Anish right.
Is
So
Anish never not all in? When is he not all
yeah,
in? Yeah,
exactly.
I know. That
So
guy's got boundless energy.
yeah, exactly. But seriously, so I've actually been talking to folks. So if the 10 by 10 is to get some piloting going, right, to be able to use the facilitated fire under TEFCA to exchange data between payer and provider. I would love to bring a pharmacy in, whether it's pharmacy to payer or even pharmacy to provider. Um, you know, And just kind of shout out to your listeners of, hey, let's, as you guys start to get more into data exchange, don't forget the pharmacy side, reach out to me. That's my role now, is to really kind of, bring in that pharmacy perspective and the standards and how we can all work together to make sure, we're improving patient care. I think in the end, that's the whole goal, right? Is to improve patient care, and whatever pharmacists can do, and we can start to do that clinical data exchange back and forth is all the better.